Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk. What do I have today? The Panerai Tourbillon PAM 315, a piece unique Jean Dunand Tourbillon, the Urwerk 202, the 5204 from Patek Philippe in Platinum, and the Michael Schumacher offshore chronograph from Audemars Piguet. Now, as always, remember, this is not a nuts and bolts review. I'm not going to get into a lot of technicality of these pieces. For that, you have other more boring blogs out there. I'm simply going to show you the pieces, tell you how I feel about them, and show you some of the cool features these watches have. First up is the PAM 315 Radiomir Tourbillon from Panerai. I'm going to start with the back of the watch because really it's the back of the watch that needs to be shown because this watch is actually a tourbillon. It's not just a tourbillon, it's a double tourbillon. As you can see, it spins among two axes. 6-day power reserve. Now flipping it to the front, all you get is what looks like a standard 47mm Radiomir Panerai. Now see, this is where Panerai I feel went wrong. If you know a little bit about watches, you know that the only other company out there that always hides their tourbillon cage, it's Patek Philippe. Now, can't really compare Patek Philippe with Panerai. Panerai all of a sudden decides, you know what, we're going to be like Patek Philippe, we're going to hide our tourbillons as well. So a couple of the first models they came out with, they hid their tourbillon in the back, and to me, that was a flop. Most people that buy a tourbillon watch, they actually want to show off the fact that it is a tourbillon. Because when you're looking at this thing and all you see is a Radiomir, for those that don't know, they're going to think you have on a $10,000, $12,000 watch. Now this piece retails for $127,000, but it has the look of a $10,000 watch. Now if you're someone that is more conservative, you don't want people to know that you're wearing a tourbillon, this certainly is a watch for you. But if you ask 99 out of 100 people that buy a tourbillon, they want people to see that they're actually wearing a tourbillon. So Panerai, I'm sorry, but hiding your tourbillon like Patek Philippe, I believe was a flop for you. And as the end result, this piece retailing at $127,000, you can pick this piece up brand new at half price or less. And speaking of Patek Philippe, next up we have the 5204 Platinum. Now this is part of their Grand Complication series. Now Patek Philippe is really funny about that. They take a perpetual calendar split-second chronograph and they classify it as a Grand Complication. Most watch brands don't do that. For example, if you take Audemars Piguet, their Grand Complication is classified under a perpetual calendar, minute repeater, split-second chronograph. This is just a perpetual calendar and it's just a split-second chronograph. There's no minute repeater. So to me, I wouldn't exactly consider this a Grand Complication watch. Yes, it is a complicated piece, but nevertheless, it is not a Grand Comp in my eyes. Now, this was the sequel to what most people would call a holy grail watch, the 5004P. And they made them in various metals, rose, yellow, gold, platinum, etc. This is its next version. And what they did here, they made the case larger. The 5004 was a tiny little watch. It was like 37 millimeters, I believe. And it was really, really small. They bumped this guy up to about 40 millimeters, which is a really nice size watch. And for those that like Patek Philippe and always wished for a larger size watches, this would be the watch. It's got a hefty price tag, $295,000 US roughly. And I say roughly because these watches are only put out with a Swiss retail, which is 270,000 Swiss francs. So it's a full perpetual calendar, shows you the date, the month, the leap year, the moon phase, blah, 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 blah. All the regular stuff that a perpetual calendar will show you. It's a split-second chronograph. Set the chronograph off as you normally would. Press the middle button to split the hands. You can press it again to put the hands together, stop it, and reset it. How useful is the split second? If you're out there timing car races or horse races or whatever other races, and let's say you wanted to time 2 different lap times, this is where you would use it. How accurate would that be? Probably not much. For the most part, people use electronic watches in order to do that. So at this point, the split second chronograph is just a gimmick. Of course, the movement is worth mentioning. Look at the machine inside this watch. It is absolutely gorgeous. Funny thing is, they give you an extra back. The watch has the exhibition back, which I just showed you, and they also give you a solid back to go with the watch. I don't know anyone that ever covers up the exhibition back on this watch, because that's definitely something you want to show people once you take the watch off, or just simply look at. This little extra, I don't know what the purpose behind it is. It never gets used. As you can see, this thing is still sealed in plastic because on this watch, it will never be used. This is how it's going to stay in the box. However, if you lose this little piece, the value of the watch goes down. It's ridiculous because now the watch is incomplete. But who even needs this thing? So retail price $295,000 roughly. Today it trades in the low 200s. Next up is this thing. And I say this thing is because at a first glance, as you're looking at this watch, the first reaction, my first reaction when I got it was like, what is this? So what is this? This is a piece unique from Jean Dunand. It is a chain-driven winding mechanism, Tourbillon GMT power reserve. Now, you noticed how busy the movement is. Well, in reality, a lot of that stuff is actually not the movement. The bridges you see on the side are more for decorative purposes. All the functionality is in the two side pockets, the tourbillon on the bottom, and the chain. Now, what I really wanted to show you here is actually the chain on how this watch winds. Look here and see if you can see, as I wind the watch, what happens. You see the chain? That is absolutely amazing. It looks like a bicycle chain, really, a miniature version of. And as I turn, you notice the power reserve is going up and that chain is winding the mainspring. Check out the GMT function as I change the time on this piece. As it gets down to the bottom, the 24-hour, it jumps back up to the 1 hour mark. So it shows you a full 24-hour time. Last thing I'll mention, this is also a chronograph, but it's not any chronograph, it's a monopusher chronograph, which means it's a single button chronograph. And all that is that you have one button that works the chronograph. You press it to set it off, you press it again to stop it, and you press it again to reset it. So instead of two buttons, you get to do it with one button. A little more complex. The movement of this watch is actually not done by Jean Dunand, it's done by Christopher Claret. Now you may remember Christopher Claret from making really crazy and different watches, like the blackjack watch, like the poker watch. Christopher Claret is an amazing watchmaker, and the movements that he makes are so avant-garde and so ahead of their time that most people can't even understand them. When I first got this watch, the first thing I asked, hey, does this thing have Bluetooth and does it get Wi-Fi? Retail price on this piece unique, $400,000. Why? Well, it's simple. Guys like Jean Dunand, guys like Christopher Claret, and a lot of the independent watchmakers out there, they don't have a huge production like the guys at Hublot or AP or some of the other major brands. They really make a very limited amount of watches. So therefore, their cost of production is extremely high. Sometimes they take 6 to 9 months to create a single watch, so they have to charge the price tag that they charge. So at $400,000, I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. It is a super complex watch. It is super innovative. I'm sure Christopher Claret cost them a pretty penny to make this movement, but they still set these prices so high that when it comes to resale value, these pieces are really not holding their value all that greatly, which is a shame because I think they should. I'm more for the independent watchmaking guys. I love the different stuff that they make, but unfortunately the market is just not there because of the simple fact that they don't make enough pieces to create that market. So with a retail price of $400,000, you can still pick this watch up for about a third of its retail price. Next up is the limited edition Audemars Piguet Michael Schumacher. What is there to be said about the Schumacher besides the way that the watch looks? Really nothing. It is a standard offshore with the same exact movement as every other offshore that Audemars Piguet makes. Of course, what makes this special is, again, how this watch looks. This is probably one of the best and one of the top 3 limited editions from AP that are made today. I mean, this watch is gorgeous. This is the titanium version. They also made it in rose and platinum. I prefer the titanium just because it weighs a lot less, doesn't dig into the side of your wrist as most of you know with AP, and just everything about the design of this watch screams racing. I'll give you a quick background on the story of limited edition APs. Back in about 2006, they came out with the Juan Pablo Montoya that really, I believe, changed and revolutionized, quote unquote, the collecting of limited edition APs. And I have to say, I'm actually the guy to blame for that. I was probably one of the first guys out there to recognize that this is a unique niche market. And a market can be created for these limited edition APs for collectors out there. I bought the first Montoya for $14,000 at the time. It retailed for $17,000. In consecutive years to come, leading all the way up to the financial crisis in 2008, the watches went from selling $17,000 to $20,000 to $22,000 to $25,000 to $30,000, $35 and has gotten up as high as $40,000 for that limited edition, more than double its retail value. And the simple reason for that was supply and demand and the fact that these were good looking watches. Now, I didn't buy all of them for $14,000 and ended up selling them for $40,000. The prices slowly increased as the market demand increased. So I went from selling a watch for $22,000, then buying it back for $24,000, then selling again for $26,000, and so on and so forth. Fast forward to today with the Michael Schumacher, AP got smart, and they already set the retail at $42,000 right out of the gate, knowing that the market can handle it. Today, the Michael Schumacher trades at about $48,000 to even $50,000 just because of the scarcity of the watch. Why is the watch so scarce and not available? It's because look at this thing. The minute you're going to buy this and put this on your wrist, you're not going to want to sell it. And the fact that they only made 1,000 of them, there's not a lot of them out in the market. The oldest trick in the book is called supply and demand. I mentioned top 3 limited edition APs. Well, this makes it into one of them. The Barrichello, the Rubens Barrichello, is probably the other one. One Pablo Montoya has gone down in price since. It's now trading in the mid-20s, which is still good because it's still $10,000 over its original retail value. Last but not least is the Urwerk 202. I left this watch for last purposely because me personally, I like different stuff. And nobody does stuff more differently than Urwerk. When you first pick this watch up and you look at it, the first question that comes to mind is, how the hell do I tell time on this thing? Before I tell you that, let me tell you a little bit about the watch if you're not familiar. The 202 features Urwerk's patented revolving satellite complication with telescopic minute hands. And let me show you what that is. So the revolving satellite, the satellite is this thing here. And it has 3 different cubes with 3 different times. So as I change the time on this watch, you'll see what I mean. As the satellite turns, the time on the cube changes, and the telescopic hands are these tiny little antenna looking things. And notice, as I spin the watch around, 2 things happen. The hands go in and out in order to fit within the case as they hide behind the case here. And another thing that you'll notice is the red ring around the telescopic hand. That's what tells you by which hand you should read the time. So if I put the watch roughly around here, right now the watch reads 2:30 and 2:45. And as I get past the 60 mark, you'll notice that hand will go in along with the red ring. And then this hand now becomes the one you tell time by. So now it's 3:30. I guess I'll have to show you the back of the watch and tell you a little bit about this in detail as well. The 202 is the world's first watch with the winding rate regulated by fluid dynamics. Now, the traditional rotating bands of the past have been replaced by these miniature twin turbines. They're these miniature air compressors. They actually look like turbines. On a selector, you have the sports mode, you have the free mode, and you have the stop mode. And you can see the little red indicators change as I change the selector. On sports mode, this thing will just go crazy on you. So why do I like this Urwerk so much? Innovation and something different. Now, a lot of people out there sometimes don't get the innovation. The watch industry has gotten away from being creative, from being different. Everybody's doing the same thing. A perpetual calendar is a perpetual calendar. And a power reserve is a power reserve, and so is the chronograph. Guys kind of go with the flow, what the industry has done in the last 250 years, and they keep making the same thing over and over and over. It becomes about the name of the watch, it becomes about the price of the watch, and it doesn't become about horology itself. That stuff has kind of gone away in the last 10 years. And I'm glad to see stuff like this being put out, because then the horology aspect of watchmaking stands out. This is so different, this is so innovative, and it looks different. I want to put something on my wrist where people say, hey, what is that you're wearing? Now, Urwerk is also one of those different, somewhat of an independent watchmaker, but it has gone mainstream in the last few years. So the market has been a bit stronger on these pieces, and so has the resale value. But even still, hefty price tag, $165,000 retail, and this watch today, you're going to still pick up at about 1/3 of that price. So that's it for today. The last thing I'm going to show you is what's on my wrist. And it is the earlier mentioned Audemars Piguet Rubens Barrichello Offshore in titanium. It is a limited edition of 1,000 pieces, just like the Schumacher that I showed you. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in once again. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more watch reviews and other videos. Till next time.